G'day everyone and welcome back to Starseeds and Patriots of Down Under today for this very special presentation with our very special guest, Mr. Dan Willis. How are you, sir? Thank you for being here with us today, mate. How have things been for you?
Chris, quite an honor to be on your show again, and it's quite an honor to be able to share this information, that graciously Elena and the authorization from the Galactic Federation of Worlds has authorized this information to be shared. And they're going to share some new information that's never been heard before, too.
Oh, I am absolutely in honor and very humbled to receive this beautiful gift from you today for all of us to receive from you as well and to share. I'm very humbled. Thank you so much for this honorable moment. Oh, wow. Thank you, Dan. How's things been for you up on the property? I've got to ask. I saw that beautiful photo that you shared online of your property. How's things up there at the moment? Are things starting to thaw out and spring's starting to come through?
Yeah, spring is coming through. The snow is melted, and looking forward to beautiful sunny days ahead.
I'm sure. I'm trying to get things organized here at the moment myself. I'm making some new gardens in my backyard and utilizing some an old futon bed to make some hangable racks for some veggies and fruit and things to hang off, like strawberries. So yeah, I'm in the process of creating at the moment and making a nice little space so I can get some organic food and produce for myself. Yes, it's very cool. I'm very much enjoying it to be a part of that. And I'm sure that you and your partner up on your property have been busy as well with things coming up now as well. So beautiful to see how we're all moving forward and creating together, it's beautiful. So I was going to ask Dan, if you'd like to, would you like to take the stage, sir, and by all means present this beautiful information that we're all receiving first off today? Oh my gosh, I'm actually still a little bit in awe at the moment. I'm still kind of beside myself how this has actually been authorized by the G.F.W and Elena to be able to share through you with us. I'm still a little bit in awe. So I can't thank you enough, and Elena and the G.F.W. Bless you, everyone.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'm at the kindergarten level of understanding science. That's like from the Pleiadians, it's 300 years more advanced than our understanding, and also the Alteans, which are 20,000 years more advanced than the Pleiadians. So
yes,
it's going to be an interesting show. Let's see.
Okay, I'll add this to the stage for you, so you can take the reins if you like, there, dear sir. And if you like, at any stage, if I find the information that I'm able to interject, and if you don't mind, if I can just touch base on
by all means,
like that.
By all means, if you have something to inject, please do. All right, I'm calling this galactic crystal science because it's not only the Pleiadians, it's the Alteans as well, with Oona, who is the emissary for the Intergalactic Confederation. So here we go. A little slideshow of attempting to put together almost 3 years of communications and hundreds of pages of question and answer from what we've learned from a Pleiadian scientist. Okay, contact initiated by a being from another world happened for me back in 1977. This being very loving, incredible. I had a Kundalini opening experience while I was interacting with this being. Incredible love coming from its eyes, and it projected a sphere in space. And as I observed the sphere, different geometries were forming in it, one into the other, going into infinity. And what the being was conveying at that time was that consciousness is related to these different geometries and densities that were all interconnected into this matrix. And over the years, many, many years ago, it has stayed consistent with what I've learned from Eredyon, which has been authorized by the Galactic Federation. Elena identified this being as a emissary. This illustration from her book, A Gift from the Stars, detailing 110 different extraterrestrial species that she actually saw with her quantum communication implant in the database of the Galactic Federation and was able to recreate it in monumental work.
Absolutely.
It was in April of 2024 that Jenhan made it clear what this experience was. He said that the Emissary are part of a science transfer program to our planet, working with other cultures such as the Umaite and the Selosi. He said that the Emissary initiated this. He says the Emissary probably followed your development in your temporal implant and decided to provide you with science. Too, my friend, this is the science of the universe, he said. He has prepared you as the science transfer program allows by modeling your understanding of the universe on a consciousness level so that when the time comes, you'll be able to understand the science that will be given to you and pass on to the Terrans. At that time in 1977, I didn't even know what platonic solids were. I didn't realize that, within the flower of life, all these different geometries fit, so this was like something totally new, put a passion in me to try to understand what this was about. So the experience led me to ask the question, what is the geometrical nature of the matrix of reality and its interface with consciousness and its relationship with quartz crystals? So in the early 1980s, I sought out Dr. Marcel Vogel, who had some interesting experiences with man-plant communications, which led him into the research of quartz crystals, interface with consciousness. And for 17 years, he researched the science of quartz crystals and the interface of consciousness with it. He had a dream to cut the crystal in a dipyramidal form, similar to the vision was like the tree of life in the Kabbalah, with a 52-degree angle and a 60-degree angle. And so, I drove all the way to the mines in Arkansas and delivered to him in San Jose a huge batch of crystals, which he was cutting in his garage for over 24 medical doctors.
Wow.
He started out with cutting with 4 sides and then increasing the number of sides. He believed that, up to about 14 sides, he says, it had the vortex spin. Jenhan said up to 24 sides still has the vortex spin.
Wow.
But he was missing out on something that he didn't realize that he would have loved to have known. That was a TV interview over 40 years ago, talking about what we now know is the med beds that can heal anything. I went over the details with scientist Jenhan Eredyon with what Marcel trained me on how it was effectively used. And he said, these methods I've just read are very effective. And I wish I've known a great mind such a vibrant being as Marcel Vogel. His legacy much perdure and be used to assist the people of Terra in their evolution of consciousness. The method described that your friend Marcel came up with is very good. But little did he know that his own consciousness was bridging the frequency of the altered bodies to source.
I'm sure he would have found that fascinating if he had learned that while still alive. That would have been absolutely brilliant to his work.
We studied a lot of different quartz crystal ancient artifacts, such as the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull.
Yes.
He saw, going into and asking the question, what's the function of the saw? He saw a temple with a hole in the ceiling. When the sun came over, it illuminated the skull. And the high priest, with an older adept, he was able to, using because quartz has the ability to embed consciousness in it. He was
Yes.
able to, with his left hand, draw the consciousness of an older adept and project it and store it into the crystal skull. And then a young girl came in, and he reversed his hands, his left hand on the skull and his right hand on the girl, draw his breath in and pulsed his breath. And that knowledge that was in the older adept, he was transferred into the young girl. Another ancient artifact came out of a pyramid out of Atlantis. I knew Dr. Ray Brown, and my brother actually stayed with him for 2 weeks, and never before seen details of what the room looked like. And Elena Danaan was able to incredibly recreate what that room looked like, with a falcon on the wall holding the sun in its talons and the 7 beings on each wing, the golden rod coming down from the ceiling, with a kind of a mercury oxide red crystal pointing at the Atlantean crystal, which had this interesting grid work in it. Elena believed it was Inky's 7 elite scientists of the Akapalu as the meeting place. Jenhan mentioned that it was a communicator to home.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating.
One of the projects, speaking of consciousness-assisted technologies, came out of the 1950s out of England, the Delaware camera, which was a holographic camera. And this camera was patented in the European Patent Office in Paris, France in 1955. Thousands of photos were taken with it. This camera could tune through the holographic field of time. It would sound oscillators in the chambers and radionic dials and the time spiral projected the pattern, the 3D pattern, up here where it's reflected upon and captured on a photographic plate. Here you can see a woman that's 50 miles away from a drop of blood, since the universe is holographic.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
The pregnancy was showing, going through the time spiral, moving forward in time, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and then 6 months. This proves that the holographic field of time is tunable. Here, a homeopathic pill. You can see the flower of the homeopathic remedy emanating from the pill. And here, lily seed, showing that in the future you could tune through time and see the bulb cycle, and then the flowering cycle into the future. It's pretty incredible.
Beautiful. It is. Oh my gosh.
Wow. This substantiated that, although it's completely primitive compared to what the medbeds can do with extraterrestrial technology, and considering that thousands of photos were made and it was patented, it substantiated that the holographic field has a time vector which is tunable. Our dear friend Alex Collier shared that the Andromedas said how their camera work. Actually, they call it a camera, interestingly enough, that can tune through the holographic field of time and pick out when all the different elements of your body, your muscles, your brain, your heart, all the different elements, and they put that together and overlay it and project it onto the body, and it morphs into that. And that's how the med beds work.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah, wow.
And Genhan Eredyon, he described how the medbeds work as well. He said, some medbed technologies use fractal holographic technology. He says, let me explain. The fractal core formula of the tissue to repair is recorded, and the perfect unaltered geometrical pattern is reconstructed and then superimposed on the damaged pattern. The old pattern instinctively pairs and morphs into the new one, because the universe tends to perfection. And we'll go into why the universe tends to perfection a little bit later. It is a holographic fractal repairing. It says sound frequency is used to tie in the new pattern to the old one. You remember how I explained earlier that the holographic structures are constructed or altered by frequency. This is from the communications log of, discussing various things.
Yes.
Speaking of going through time, I found this incredible. Elena, as you know, goes off planet, and she was on board the Metaton ship, where they had a time-looking device, and she was able to view 20 years into the future. And High Commander Haben said regarding this, all of these technologies that you saw 20 years from now are now being produced now in this precise moment. Everything is real. Everything exists already. It's now, it's ready for when the people of Terra are ready. And a new leader will come. Yay. And the dark will vanish because the light will rise. All the real leaders will rise all over the planet Earth, as you call it. And it is now, very soon, the time when you stand up and the hand that we've held out to you, you finally take it. We are family. So this is a very inspiring message to me, because here Elena was actually able to see into the future. And it does appear that a new leader has come, and leaders across our entire planet are now coming up. And more is being disclosed as the deep state is being exposed and the light is rising. And so it feels very good. In fact,
it does.
A few months later, she was actually taken on board Thorhan's scout ship physically, and taken to the moon and seen these huge, inside the moon and the moon bases, huge, massive medbed facilities where once these medbeds are released to our planet, probably after the deep state house cleaning is done, the corrupt medical system, with the pharmaceuticals and everything like that, will be completely replaced with these new modalities of healing that we don't need the pharmaceuticals anymore.
I highly agree. Yes.
So, in the future, I learned a lot. This is back in the 80s, back when I was working with Marcel. After I I was a top secret military witness that testified back in 2001. I wrote an article about who controls the agreed upon reality through the mainstream media and why they're fearing disclosing the truth about it. And I kept on researching different witness testimonies that were coming out because I wanted to see who was corroborating what. Obviously, we don't have the whole picture of the whole thing.
No.
And in the year 2001, there became a growing number of witnesses coming forward that claimed to have a total memory recall of their service in a secret space program. And all of them are saying that they have this 20-year tour of duty. They get enlisted like when they're 17 or so. Mm-hmm. They go into a new timeline, serve 20 years of service in space, and then at the end of the time, their body is physically brought back to when they were like 17, and their memories wiped. And going along in the normal Earth timeline, all of a sudden, as about 20 years lapse, all of them start having total memory recall, which is interesting, because the first that came out was Michael Ralph back in 2000. Yes. Actually, it was John Charles Moyen, actually earlier, but publicly everybody became aware of Michael Ralph, which came out around the year 2000. And it
2000,
was in the 1980s, 20 years earlier, that the Solar Warden Secret Space Program initiated.
That's right.
So we have, John Charles back in 1992 is on a French radio broadcast. Michael Ralph, Naira Isley, Andy Passaggio, Randy Kramer.
Tony.
We know this guy.
Oh yeah, our good friend Tony.
Dear old Tony Rodriguez, and a wonderful man that's no longer with us, William Tompkins, who revealed a lot. And we have part of the like Randy Kramer, part of a special section in the U.S. Marine Corps Secret Space Program. Then in the Air Force, you have Emery Smith, and then Mr. Rice. So I started studying and comparing. Once you start in this, it's like a Pandora's box. You keep researching.
Oh, it just keeps going. New keys open new doors to new answers. It just keeps going, doesn't it?
And then all of a sudden you start finding out there's some of these people are just making up stuff, like how do you hide things? You muddy the waters with disinformation. I call them counter disclosure assets that come out to try to discredit. They'll go along and say, the earth is flat or whatever. And this is what led me to Elena Danaan, because as I started researching her claims and corroborating what she said with actual evidence, there became I made a list of at least 26 corroborations of what Elena would say, and then gets corroborated afterward that there is no way that she could fabricate this.
No.
3 examples were that in her book, A Gift from the Stars, she detailed 3 planets in Proxima Centauri 2 years before NASA discovered it with their more high-powered telescopes. And then
there it is. Oh,
yes.
There we go.
Well, that's
the Cedars. Sorry, I picked up the wrong one.
Wrong book.
I picked up the wrong one. Sorry, my mistake. Sorry.
And then Thorhan says, watch for activity in Neptune. All of a sudden, Neptune starts heating up because as the Cedars come into in 2021, into our solar system, all the arcs activated in our entire solar system. So the Neptune started heating up. And this is, there's no way you could make this up. Thorhan is on Mars they're doing terraforming operations, and he says to Elena, we just had a huge quake. And so immediately she emails Dr. Michael Salla to document and timestamp when this happens. 1 week later, NASA reports the largest quake ever recorded in our entire solar system on Mars. I mean, stuff you just cannot make up.
You can't. No, that's
so,
right.
In 2022, Elena invited me onto her show. She knew I had worked with Dr. Marcel Vogel and studying crystals. And she said that Thorhan has a younger brother who was at the time going to a university in the Pleiades learning how to terraform planets, or what they call a star maker. And that he has an advanced understanding of the, structure of the matrix and crystals and interface with consciousness, and that I could ask him questions. So starting in April 2022, I started to put out some basic questions, and he would answer them. And so right now there was like 200 and some pages of question and answer. He's graciously, Thorhan, his older brother, was able to get authorization to answer any of my questions. So one of the things that he brought to my attention, that on his equipment, he has a consciousness reading technology that could read into my past life, and that in the time of Atlantis, I was a scientist in the capital city of Atla that took I was attendant to one of the large crystal generators, and he said my specialty, one of my specialties was medical holographic science, which is interesting because I have a extreme interest in the medbed technology, and that I was one part of a team of scientists that after the destruction of Atlantis, thanks to that reptilian guy,
Yeah.
throw in a meteorite.
He who shall not be named. We'll call him that.
We hid technologies, in the planet, so that, to be found later. So it's kind of interesting. I don't have the full past life recall like Elena does, but I found it interesting. That's probably why I have an interest in this subject.
Yes.
So I'm going to go over some basics here of what we've learned from Junhan. These are the basic fundamentals.
Beautiful. Please do, Dan. Thank you. Wow.
Quartz crystals, the core holographic structure of quartz, the purest material in the universe, is based on the same core fractal formula as water, and both are interdimensional bridges. Crystals can store data just as water does because it is constructed on the same fractal core formula. But crystals have way more capacities. Of course, they're the most elaborate state of matter, so elaborate that it naturally embeds consciousness. When they talk about these space arcs and they have a crystal,
yes,
the plasmatic consciousness embeds itself into the crystal to operate the arc or the spacecraft.
Yes.
A crystal is a bridge because it exists in all dimensions at a time. So a crystal is manifested physically in all densities, all dimensions at a time. This is why it acts as a bridge. Tetrahedral.
If you don't, I was going to ask Dan, if you don't mind me asking, for people that are just starting to come onto this information, I was going to ask as well, like with the crystals and how you can embed consciousness and holographic consciousness into the actual matrix of the crystal. Is that similar to how we could relate how in the original 1978 movie of Superman, for example, how Jor-El's consciousness as such was embedded within the crystal for Kal-El to learn from at his 18th birthday, to learn about who he was? Is that what we're talking about here in relation to embedding your consciousness into the crystal itself? Is that very similar sort of science and technology?
There's been so much soft disclosure through science fiction. When I was a kid in the 1950s, I loved, The Day the Earth Stood Still and Forbidden Planet and all these things. And little did we know as children that the real thing was going on and hidden from us all this time. But onward, tetrahedral fractal geometry is one of the main frequency keys used to build worlds and life forms. It's the secret of the universe. In other words, this whole universe is made up of, tetrahedrons that are formed to create reality.
Yes. I learned a bit about that through Nassim Haramein's work a few years ago, which led me to your work as well, which I could see the bridge between the two. Fascinating, corroborating information.
This is a recent answer I received from Junhan regarding the periodic table of elements, all the different elements that we have. The tetrahedral fractal geometry forms the building blocks of the various elements, iron, gold, silver, everything. He says, quote, "There are so many more elements you haven't discovered yet. The structure of each element is based on a geometry that emits frequency form." So everything's based on this tetrahedral fractal geometry, and the configurations of these create the different elements that we know.
Wow. That's beautiful. Wow.
Thought. When we think, we project geometric thought patterns that are tetrahedral and very highly complex. He says, everything in the created universe is constructed on a geometrical holographic structure. The energies of mind are fractals of consciousness, solidified in a way, or shall I say, that have taken a form of geometrical manifestation. A thought creates an electrical projection. An energy thought reshapes the holographic geometrical formula of reality. It rearranges the microconnections linking the fractal elements. Thought can reshape the holographic grid of reality because thoughts are complex geometrical patterns. The crystal will bridge the new pattern to the existing ones, and if the impulse is strong enough, the new pattern will force themselves onto the old, and the old will morph into the new.
Wow, that's
A breath.
beautiful.
Well, this is something that Marcel, he studied pranayama yoga, and the breath, you can direct consciousness with breath. Breath carries memories and thoughts. It also carries the energy of a being, not only the encoding of its vehicle DNA, but as well the encoding of the soul. When you project breath, you also project by superimposing a parcel of the soul being, hence a fragment of one's consciousness. The energy force that is a living manifestation of source is being impregnated inside the crystal. And he says, short, precise, surgical, powerful breaths are better than a long one. And a long one, the energy and tension gets absorbed by the ether. And so this is what Marcel discovered when he was doing man-plant communication. He was actually able to cause a script chart recorder all the way from Prague, Czechoslovakia to his laboratory in San Jose by pulsing his breath with consciousness and through the nose like a Kundalini fire breath.
Yes.
Like that. He found it had the greatest reaction. So this confirming what Jen Han shared.
Wow.
The love, a very important subject. The frequency of love is the connecting pulse between all living things in the universe, even through dimensional planes. Love is a universal bridge. It can bridge anything. I mean, anything. Love is the tool. So when you intend love into the crystal, and this is what Marcel always stressed as well, the importance of working with love, you activate its transcending capacity. When on top of this action, you embed a target by visualization. It bridges you to it easily. Love is a secure channel because of the high frequency. It prevents dissonance. Water, by its natural core structure, is a universal connecting medium. Love is a more complex holographic structure, but from the same core fractal formula as water. Crystal is a derivative geometrical pattern from water and love, but built on the same core formula. This is why water, love, and quartz all interface.
All go hand in hand.
And Marcel brought this out back in the 80s that when they dug up ice core samples out of Antarctica, they found that all the major classes of crystallographic forms were in water, meaning that water has this ability to universally resonate with everything, as everybody knows.
Yes.
And the reason why only love can resonate into the higher densities, Jen Han says, quote, dissonance cannot attune with an ordered state of geometrical resonance. In other words, the matrix that we're in is in an ordered state of geometrical resonance. And when you have a hateful thought or something that's not in alignment, when you have compassion, love, thank you, wisdom, gratitude, it takes form in the water, and the water resonates with it. But if you have like a dissonant thought, it cannot take form, and that's illustrated by Dr. Masaru Emoto's water crystallization form.
I found that research quite fascinating as well, because being an ex musician myself and mixing music, I've always been fascinated because you've got heavy metal and the other forms of different music there, and I was always curious as to how the form of music that I played, which was trance music, more so, which was around about 134 beats per minute. I always wondered what the geometric structure would be if it had one, if it was to be measured like that, or if it didn't have a structure as such.
Yeah, you can see curious. You can see the difference between that which resonates and that which is dissonant.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to go into some heavy stuff. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Bring it on, my dear brother. Please do.
Okay. We're going to go into the structure of the holographic matrix. The flower of life pattern, this simple pattern with the circles that you can make with a compass, actually embeds within it some very complex mathematical geometry that is basically the blueprint of the multiverse. And the multiverse is made up of these spherical dimensions, infinite number of spherical dimensions.
Yes.
Our particular dimensional sphere that we're in, of the infinite number of spherical dimensions, has 12 densities that emanate from source. Source, at the 13th in this particular situation, emanates, Jenhan says in their culture they call it Imana. Imana radiates from source down into the lower realms.
Okay.
And this is what, the Emissary shared with me back in 1977, how this whole thing works. Source, I love this by High Commander Thor Eredyon.
Myself too. I love reading this.
He says, there is no concept such as gods in this creation, because the creations of Source do not worship each other, and also because the creations of Source do not worship Source. They are a fractal of it. They are the same essence. Worship is a product of unawareness and controlled ignorance, as you know. Our planet will discover that there's not a guy with a long beard and a chair and
no,
all
indeed.
that stuff. Yeah. So
very wise words those are.
I attempted to condense some key thoughts about Source on this one page, and there's a lot of information, but I can say that Source tends toward growth and evolution and stands at the highest point of evolution near perfection. The universe tends to perfection, as Jenhan described in the medbed technology.
Yes.
When you have a dissonant pattern and you put a resonant pattern over it, it will choose the resonant pattern because the universe tends toward this perfection.
That's right.
The higher being's consciousness goes in density. This is just what the Emissary shared with me as well. The more that being resonates more with this perfection and with the frequency of love. Source is constantly creating, radiating outwards fractals of consciousness through the spectrum of densities. It's like harmonics, like a musical
harmonic
scale.
Frequency waves. Yes, absolutely.
From higher to lower densities, using the morphogenic keys of the holographic tetrahedral fractal geometry lattice matrix of creation. Source is dual in nature and creative. And since each of us are fractals of Source, we are also dual in nature, our left and right sides in our body.
Hemisphere. That's right, yes.
And creative, and have the ability to create and change reality. As conscious beings in this dimension, we evolved through love. And that's what the Emissary said as well. As love is a binding medium between all living things and bridges us from the lower densities into the higher densities closer to Source. Love transcends the densities, as love prevents dissonance, as the matrix is an ordered state of geometrical resonance, of which dissonance cannot attune to, as Dr. Emoto illustrated.
That's right.
The quartz crystal is in synchronized frequency with Source and exists in all densities and dimensions at a time, as it is the fundamental structure of the universe. So when you stimulate the central vortex singularity of the crystal, it connects to the void and bridges to Source, where a conscious thought pattern can be crystallized forever, as the void is outside of linear time.
Wow.
Now we'll go in to describe what the void is.
Excellent.
Existing in between and outside of the infinite dimensional spheres of the multiverse of different densities, in nonlinear space and time, exists the void. Now, keep in mind, the void is void of everything. There's nothing in the void. But all the dimensional spheres have what Jenhan describes as the ether. The ether is within these spheres, but there's nothing within the void. And so the void is basically that which the multiverse resides within. But the void is like connected to all dimensional spheres. In fact, it took me a while to get my head around this. Elena was helping me with Jenhan on this, because I was thinking, the flower of life is like perfect geometry, right?
Yeah.
And so you think there'd be like perfect geometry of all the spheres, and I couldn't get my head around it. But when you understand that the void is devoid of space and time, it's a nonlinear space. And so all the dimensional spheres, just like in nature, how,
Yes.
like golden mean ratio is like approximations and everything. And
Yes.
Elena actually witnessed this firsthand when she was on board Prince Ia's ship, the Nibiru, where he showed her what source looks like. And it was like all these wobbling bubbles of different densities throughout the multiverse is what this is what source looks like. And so when you, with your consciousness, when you go into the singularity vortex within the crystal, it goes into the void. And since the void is connected to everything, in other words, it's connected to all densities, all dimensions, you connect to the highest level, which is at the level of source, the highest density. And so when you impregnate or imprint a thought pattern into it, it lasts forever. It's crystallized forever because it's outside of linear. There is no time in the void. So it lasts forever. And this is how they use this technology to create physical reality.
That is incredible science.
So now we go into the deeper levels of the crystal science.
Wow. I'm looking forward
Oona
to this.
said that one day you'll remember that the highest technology in the universe is consciousness. And everything that, the science that they use, the technology that they use is all consciousness interface and consciousness assisted technology. So it's not like the mechanical world of meters and switches and levers and knobs, back in 1947 when they saw the craft, it didn't make any sense to them. How do they not have wires and how they have control panels and stuff like that? Because it interfaced with the DNA of the pilot, and the pilot's consciousness became one with the craft, which was actually a living conscious being that interfaced with. And so as we move forward in the future with technology, more technology will evolve into being consciousness assisted. Oh, this is from Oona of the Intergalactic Confederation, 20,000 years more advanced than the Pleiadians that are 300 years more advanced than us. And this is what she shared about quartz transponding the lattice of time in the crystal. She says, quote, quartz is a transponder by nature. It connects to the points of the grid of space. It vibrates not only in the lattice of space, but also on the lattice of time. Your science will soon discover this. Quartz is the highest state of solid matter before the state of light. That is why quartz can heal tissue. She says, it doesn't reorganize matter on a molecular level, but repairs it by transponding the injured organic tissues with a vibratory key of a previous state before the alteration was made. It reorganizes dissonance with a resonant template, unquote. So you can imagine if you cut your arm or injure yourself within the crystal, in the lattice of space and time, the pattern of your healthy arm before it was injured is there. And so the universe tends toward this perfection. So it resonates with that pattern before the injury was made. And this is how it can heal. Jenhan, it was a conversation we were having. Jenhan was saying crystals have their own fractal geometry. If they are in their natural original shape, they have it active naturally. In other words, crystals as they grow in nature, like this. They, interesting, are all at 52 degrees, 52 all degrees, the terminations. And so they have it active naturally. But when it's cut following the lattice structure, they keep it and even be enhanced considerably that way. Thorhan tells me that what type of crystals correspond to what I say. And Elena, in our interactions, because Elena's relaying this information She says, the Vogel cut crystals? And Thorhan says yes. And I ask, are the Vogel cut crystals significantly more powerful than the natural single quartz crystal point for doing this work? Jenhan responds saying, quote, oh, yes, they are, if it is cut rightly, in perfect alignment with the grid of the lattice. Natural raw quartz are, of course, effective, has been used throughout cultures,
All cultures, yes.
American Indians and then India and, all over the world, people have reverenced quartz crystals as having special spiritual attributes.
Always. Yes.
Which is science not yet fully discovered. And so, but the Vogel cut, he says, as you named them, are a more surgical tool to operate into the fabric of space-time and universal consciousness. And so this is how the Pleiadians form their crystals on the planet Era, is also how the Alteans, I asked Jenhan about this, are you doing the same way where you align laterally and vertically with the hexagonal core and the 60 and 51.843 degree angles? And he says, yes, they are on the Altean ship. Wow. And so what we've done is, regular Vogel crystals, have different varying sides, but this is specifically cut. And so we've designated this type of cut as a, quote, Vogel Eredyon in honor of Marcel's pioneering work and the new information that Jenhan has shared. So we call it a Vogel Eredyon crystal.
Vogel Eredyon crystal. That's very befitting, absolutely.
So I asked, why the 51.843 degree angle? He says this is a ratio that acts as a transponder. It is dynamic geometry. Some shapes, just because of their proportions, naturally affect the holographic structure of the matrix. We use this specific pyramidal ratio to build our frill generators, because the geometry structure of the central crystal in the generator will interface with the pyramidal ratio of the building or the machine harvesting its energy. He says the most accurate is 51.843. And he refers to the Great Pyramid in Giza as being exactly that. And why the 60 degree angle? Well, since the structure of the matrix is based on tetrahedrons, and every angle in a tetrahedron is 60 degrees, he says it is because the sender angle must be in resonance with the geometry of the holographic matrix that is the receiver. And as you can see in the Flower of Life, the 60 degree angle.
Absolutely. Wow.
Interesting, Egyptian obelisks also put a 60 degree angle at the pyramidion at the top. Now, modifying the matrix of reality. Here we go into the use of this technology. Now, Jenhan said to me that I was told the mission you have chosen consists in teaching the Terrans how they can change their reality. You always knew this. Apparently I did. Teach them how to activate the vortex and how to modify the holographic matrix. And so I've asked Jenhan a lot of questions, and he can answer all of them except for one. It was forbidden by the Prime Directive. Thorhan had to get permission from the High Command of the Galactic Federation of Worlds in order to answer this question. Because it was on a list of things not to respond to. But apparently, maybe a past life memory or something, I was asking him about the interdimensional portal between the charge triads and the crystal lattice structure. And so this was the answer. The phase conjugation node for the vortex singularity of the crystal. He says, quote, it works by finding the phase conjunction node inside the crystal by projecting inwards the geometrical shapes of the two opposite points. Like a mirror, there is a vortex singularity of the crystal. Focus your thought and energy just there, and you may project your consciousness to anywhere you wish in this universe and other universes, to other densities, other dimensions. Anything is accessible in space, dimension, and time. This is great power, Elena. It is very important information. I am honored to be allowed to share this with you. That was his response. Yes, you can connect to any point in time and space, dimension, anything with this knowledge.
Fascinating, hey?
So now I'm honored to be allowed to share the science with all of your listeners.
Wow, I'm very honoured. We as a group, as a people, are very honoured, Dan. Thank you so much for this. Wow.
Hey, this goes into the science of the geometry, of how these geometries interact, and how it relates to the flower of life, the blueprint of creation, and the crystal, and how to open up the singularity vortex. Jenhan says, quote, the ratio of the hexagonal and pentagonal multi-layered blueprint applied to a living organism will produce cellular evolution, plants, humans, stars, and so on. This ratio is the key to life and is also represented in the blueprint you know as the flower of life. Those who understand the secret geometry of the flower of life can create universes and life forms to populate them. And here you can see within the flower of life, you can see a hexagonal form,
Yeah,
the pentagonal form, the 60-degree angle, and the 51.843-degree angle is interesting because if you project the next ×3 overlay onto the top, the nodal points of the lattice structure hit right up 51.843, as though it's like a bridge from one dimension into the next.
To the next, yes.
And this hexagonal pentagonal geometry is found in our DNA. This double coiled helix, and how the crystals are cut with the 60 and the 51.843. This is the receptive end, and this is the active or sending end, you could say. This is related to the golden mean ratio, of which the pentagonal geometry is a profound example. Every angle to everything else is the golden mean ratio. And it's also within the 51.843-degree angle of the Great Pyramid. And the active end is related to the hexagonal of the matrix, which is the 60-degree tetrahedral geometry. And so you have these two geometries, the pentagonal and the hexagonal, within the crystal pyramidion terminations. Now, these two terminations are at different angles, and the two frequencies of vortex spin are based on these different angles of inclination of the two terminations. Jenhan says, quote, the two dynamics counter-rotate and meet at the vortex singularity. Because of this counter-rotating dynamics, the vortex is opened by phase conjugation of the two frequencies. I asked him, what would happen if they were both 52 degrees or both 60 degrees? He says, at the same frequency rate, the dynamics cancel. You need a difference in the speed rate to create a dynamic for the experience to tend toward perfection. And since nothing in the universe ever reaches the absolute point of perfection, the universe is alive through the dynamics of evolution. And he explained it's like this dynamic engine in the universe where you have these two opposing forces, that one goes above the other and back and forth. It's like this engine of the universe that is the dynamic because of this difference.
Constant perpetual motion.
And so this is the technology of how they take, in our dimensional sphere is filled with ether. And the ether can be converted into physical reality. And this is how it's done. The 51.843 angle geometry transpons the etheric energy coming in on this end, on the receptive end. And the 60-degree angle geometry imprints it into the holographic matrix of the universe over here on the active end.
On the active end, yes.
It forms the physical reality. This is a great network. This is how we implement etheric energy into physical reality. And this is how the liminal geometric point of transfluxation, sometimes called the eye, is where these two vortices come together, and it causes this transfluxation, this fluxing of the that opening up the singularity, allows the intentions of consciousness. In other words, your consciousness goes in and can modulate this geometric point of transfluxation and modulate it to form the physical reality, to imprint a geometric thought pattern. And I asked him about this vortex that is spinning within the crystal. I said, I showed him this 1970s Krillian photograph showing capturing this double coiled torsion field. And he says, quote, a pyramidion creates a frill vortex. Frill is the etheric energy. The vortex you depict in the visual that I showed with him is the etheric energy harvested by the pyramidion. The dynamic influx of this harvested energy, the mathematical ratio of the pyramidion, generates a double-coiled torsion field.
Yes.
And so the two dynamics twirling in opposite directions create a phase-conjugated tension that creates a singularity in the hologram, a convergence of infinite power. And so this is also called the eye of the crystal, or like the center, like in a hurricane, the still point in the middle of the hurricane, the eye of the crystal. This animation was done by our dear friend Steph Zach, who does a lot of animation. Highly talented lady in France.
Absolutely.
Elena's
And the funny
sister.
thing is, I absolutely have always envisioned that moving the way it just did in that animation. That's absolutely brilliant to have that validation. Wow.
Oh, she's amazing. She's amazing. Nothing happens. Nothing happens until you activate the vortex. And how you activate the vortex is by it needs to be piezoelectrically stimulated. The lattice structure is made up of these positive and negative charge triads. And when you either put physical pressure or electronic pulses, you can see it offsets the center.
Yeah.
And so this creates a dynamic reaction between the two polarities of the charge triads of the lattice structure and creates an exponential reaction that triggers the singularity portal. And so how you find out where in the crystal it is, like, for example, you can see I have a little piece of tape. You have to measure these two angles and where they meet. It's like a flat discoidal vortex area. That's the eye of the crystal. Now you can have inclusions in the crystal, but you want to avoid this area because this is where the vortex forms. Now you can do it with your fingers. It doesn't need a lot of pressure because it communicates through the fingertips, the energy.
That's right.
You'd want to. I recommend putting I use a little diamond-shaped white piece of tape to see where you want to put your fingers in that area. The smaller crystals actually work just as well as the big crystals for opening a vortex. In fact, it takes less pressure on a smaller crystal to open a vortex than it does with the larger crystal. But the large crystals are good with electronic pulses. Elena and I, we initially, when we learned of this, we set up with plumbing parts and candle holders in makeshift arrangements using silver coins and things, and we programmed our function generators to 20 hertz at 1% duty cycle pulses that sends in compression waves into the lattice structure and keeps the singularity vortex open constantly. When you're doing it with your fingers, it's only opening it temporarily, but that works. Yeah, but if you use electronic pulses, it keeps the vortex continually open. Now these are improved designs. You go to marcelvogel.org on modifying the holographic matrix. I have the parts that you can put together to make your own. It's only for the small crystals, like only around $180 or so from Crystal Light and Sound, who's been having their cutters cut to Genhan specification. And then I have a 3D printer file. Our engineer in France has generously made available, so you can put together this configuration, which is a lot easier than this one. This requires a lot of work. You have to drill the plastic and everything. The idea is to suspend the crystal and have the electrodes going across the eye of the crystal. And the other part of the equation is U, which it's good to be in what's called gamma brainwaves, which is a higher frequency brainwave. People sometimes call this state like a deep love for all beings. Which works. The pineal gland.
I was going to say, Dan, if you don't mind me quickly just saying as well, I've found through my own journeys of discovery that apparently the brain waves of while we're asleep apparently are on gamma brainwave levels whilst we're asleep. So in other words, the brain activity is more active as such whilst we're asleep than what we are in beta brainwave levels whilst we're awake. So it's very much coincides with this.
It's good to do mental preparation when you're working with this consciousness assisted technology. You have to be at a certain inner peace and state of mind and to be able to effectively do it. Now, the pineal gland is, Jenhan says, the crystals in your pineal gland are calcium carbonate, which is organically produced by the tissues of the human body. These microcrystals generate an electromagnetic field at the center of which is an interdimensional vortex for consciousness. This is where your soul comes in and animates your avatar. Humans, Jenhan says, humans across all races of our species, like the Pleiadians and the Terrans and on any world, have this vortex gland. The reptilians and the Tao, the Greys, don't have this ability. That is why they can't access what we're able to. So we have this ability, this interdimensional vortex within our pineal gland. That's why it's good to have your pineal gland as clear as you can.
Every now and then.
It connects to source, and it is also how to connect into the singularity vortex of the eye, the crystal from your. So this vortex basically interfaces with the crystal's vortex, and there's different things that you can do. Like say, if you wanted to visualize a beautiful reality on our planet, for example. You prepare your target vision in your mind, you sense the open vortex with your consciousness, and you take a deep breath, and you, with your breath, you pulse and project that in, and it writes into the singularity. So I'm going to do something that I've never done before. So I have to put up a medical disclaimer, ask your doctor if using your consciousness with a crystal is right for you, dictated by people from outer space.
Anyway. I love it. I love your humor, Dan. It's beautiful.
So I'm going to briefly go over some of the healing procedures of both Jenhan Eredyon and Oona, of how they've shared of how to use these Vogel Eredyon cut crystals and in opening the vortex and healing ourselves and others but you have to obtain always permission from another, or else you violate universal law.
Universal law, that's right. Absolutely.
So, the first thing you want to do, of course, is get into a correct state of mind and be at inner peace with yourself. You can momentarily open the vortex with a finger pressure on your Vogel Eredyon cut crystal. You can, as I mentioned earlier, you want to put like a little piece of tape or something that marks where the vortex is forming, so you can piezoelectrically open that part of the crystal. Now, one of the first things you need to do before you do any crystal work, and this was stressed highly by Dr. Marcel Vogel and Jenhan Eredyon, it's very important to clear the crystal. Now, I suggest going to elenadanaan.org or marcelvogel.org and watch crystal class number 2 on clearing a crystal. We went through everything Marcel knew, everything Jenhan knew, that, do not use salt to clear the crystal. Dancing naked in the moonlight around it, or sun, or saging, or there's a whole bunch of folklore that doesn't do anything to clear the crystal. The magnetic bulk eraser, I have one here somewhere, that Marcel used, does clear the crystal. What Marcel always used to do was he would hold the crystal and pulse his breath with the intention of clearing it, like, and then switch to the next set of facets, and then that.
Wow.
If you don't have anything, it does help clear the crystal, but as Jenhan described, that if you have any parasitic thoughts, that any troubles, worries, or anything that's going on, you project that into the crystal. So the crystal isn't exactly totally clear. He says the mind has to be like clear as spring water. People who have evolved to a state of a clear mind can do that with a crystal and clear it. But what they use is sound scan technology. The frequency of the quartz lattice structure is 4096 hertz. So that when you oscillate that, what it does is that all the lower frequency attachments get vibrated out of the crystal lattice structure.
Wow.
One of our science team engineer, Kent Noonan, designed this, but it has to be the exact frequency. Tuning forks don't work because they're not on the exact frequency. They change according to temperature. But he designed a crystal-controlled sound transducer that's precisely on the frequency. Oona, with Elena, checked it, and she said it completely erased the crystal down to base zero, and even invigorated the crystal. So it worked. But you can also, if crystal light and sound sells these. I have zero financial interest in all this stuff with crystals, but you can also, if you want it for free, you can use. Everybody has a cell phone, and so long as you put it in airplane mode, when you turn off all harmful radiations, there's if you go to marcelvogel.org under Jenhan Eredyon notes, I've linked 2 free apps that work for iPhone or Android that you just plug in the 4096 hertz. It takes a little longer, but you just put it on your phone with all the radiations turned off, of course, and the sound. You rotate the crystal, a few times, so you get all 3 axes. Will clear the crystal. So you can do that. There's other methods that uses electromagnetics that is much too complicated, but the best method we've found is using the 4096 hertz sound, because it will completely clear the crystal, which is important, because before you work with it, you have to have clean tools.
Absolutely. Every time. It's like a surgeon when they're going in for surgery, they have to have clean equipment.
So here's the procedure. These are Jenhan Eredyon's words. Open your pineal vortex, in your pineal gland. Visualize the wounded area. Let's say you hurt your arm bad, right? Visualize the wounded area and bring it from your physical eyes into your pineal gland. In other words, see it in your mind's eye. And then recreate the repaired holographic. All this has to do with being able to create holograms within our mind to be effective. You recreate the repaired holographic version within your mind in your pineal eye. Because it is open, the open vortex, you are imprinting this to source. As I said earlier, our pineal glands are like a connection to source. So you basically recreate the arm being completely healed.
And that it's most optimal.
And now the next step is imprint the repaired version of the damaged version in your mind's eye. And so you see the arm completely healed. And then you project this repaired version into the crystal's eye. In other words, if you're using the crystal, you would put your fingers like that around the eye, and then you would pulse your breath while you project the vision at the same time as you give a little squeeze, all synchronized together. Like that. And what happens is you're connecting to source, and the 60-degree angle, the sending angle, you want to point that with a winding movement clockwise into the damaged area until you feel it's casted into the morphogenic field.
Wow.
Breathe into the crystal at the same time. Breathe in means, pulse your breath as you squeeze. Regularly, the repair, in other words, do it multiple times. Keep beating it with that repaired vision from your mind's eye. The crystal is the bridge. The source is at a level of perfection. And when you bridge to that, it brings the dissonant pattern into, as Oona was saying earlier, brings it into more resonance or healed, you could say. Speaking of Oona, here is her method, which is, I really love this method as well, from the Altean culture, has the most advanced knowledge on crystals. Oona says, quote, "The crystal is a bridge to Source Creator when it comes to healing. I'm talking about physical healing as well as emotional healing. It bridges your consciousness to the disharmonious area through Source consciousness. This is what creative frequency of Source does by nature. It reharmonizes and repairing of the wounded area. Practically, with a crystal in your hand as a tool, project your holographic vision of the repair to be made into the central vortex of the crystal. It will connect to Source and bridge the creative frequency of Source in the holographic thought you imprinted in the crystal to the target." Now, keep in mind that the Alteans can, if they were injured or, they would be able to, with their consciousness, just repair themselves. They don't need to use crystals or anything. And when they hold a crystal, the vortex naturally opens. They're much, much more advanced than we are. But what we want to do is use like a kind of a combination of what Jen Hand shared. It's like when you open the vortex, you use your fingers with a pulse, with synchronized breath and projection of your holographic pattern at the same time. Oona says, quote, "Source is the healing frequency. Your consciousness gives the impulse order. The crystal bridges your consciousness thought to the target by connecting to the creative frequency of Source." She says, "Use it like water." And I made a little diagram here, like water pouring out of the crystal.
Yeah.
Source Creator is the medicine. Your consciousness is the water that carries the medicine. The crystal is the tool that pours the medicine water onto the target. This is an easy way for people to visualize,
Yes.
She says, quote, "We touch the target with the top of the crystal." In other words, you have something you can touch it with the sending end, or rotate the crystal, like Jen Hen says, in a clockwise direction into the area over the target.
Wow.
And that's two healing procedures. This is about frill. When the singularity is open in the crystal, it bridges to Source, and frill comes from it. And this is, of course, how they power their planet, how they power their starships. They're not yet allowed to share how to do this yet, but frill is very, very healing. The frill from Source is the most powerful energy you can ever imagine to harness. Of course, when the singularity of the vortex is triggered in the crystal, and when it bridges to Source, frill comes from it. Frill is the energy created from gravity waves in what you name the ether. These gravity waves are also named compression waves. These waves can be created by gravity or a scalar pulse sufficiently powerful and constant. You will learn that consciousness can produce scalar waves and generate frill. I'm not speaking about electrical brain waves, which are efficient too, but by pure consciousness. Frill can be present everywhere in the multiverse, and it is efficient when activated by a pulse. That's why we pulse the compression waves into the vortex.
Yes.
And this is how they use frill to power their spacecraft. The dynamic impulse in the ether creates compression waves, which generate frill. The crystals here in the central core store and convert this power into the red ionized mercury plasma that's going in the dual perpendicular toroids of the ship's anti-gravity propulsion system. In other words, one's going at 90 degrees to the other, perpendicular, and this causes the canceling of mass and the propulsion for the spacecraft.
0 point energy. Yeah.
Our dear scientist friend, Chris Sohn, who's an amazing scientist, part of our team in Paris, France, points out the inconsistencies of Einstein that got it wrong. Ether is basically the basic brick of the universe. Particles are like ether vortexes. Light is like a wave in the ether. Energy is ether movement and pressure. Gravity is an accelerated wind in this ether. And the speed of light is variable, like in any fluid. Gravitational ether wind ending into compression scalar waves. The mass as an aerodynamic ratio of a body in the vacuum. In other words, it's like this fluid medium called the ether that... And this is how they power their entire planet. The little question that I asked is the basic fundamentals of how they power their planet. Jenhan said, on my home world, we have power generators, such as those you know from Atla, the Atlantean civilization that I don't fully remember, but I wish we could converse with you directly face to face, because we're really laying between Elena and I.
Yes.
How exhilarating it would be. He says, anyway, on Era, from the home planet where he comes from, we do have central power plants, pyramidal power plants, and tall natural crystal in the central core. The frill harvested is collected in the top of the pyramid. They have these resonators. Or you may understand better the term teleported to smaller devices that we name secondary generators. These transpond the frill for and towards the power web of our cities. They don't use ugly wires like we do.
No.
Everything's wireless.
Wireless, just as Tesla envisioned.
In the countryside settings, each house can choose to have a small replica of the big power generators, pyramid generators, or we can either have a generator that supplies a whole community. That's how we have organized where I'm coming from, Niudur in the Nardarian Valley. We are relying on a community generator above the hill. It supplies power to all the habitats. So if you live way out in the boonies, you can have a little small one. It gives you power for everything and generates frill, which is very healthful in your environment. Jenhan and Thorhan's older sister is actually a temple generator attendant and technician and she's 160 years old.
Wow.
Only we look that good at 160.
wish I did too. Geez. Wow.
Yeah, we have a lot to learn about. We had our DNA messed with, so
Unfortunately,
we should be persisting many more hundreds of years than we do.
Yes.
Elena was shown one of these crystal generators, so you can see the copper and silver double coils. Now, Jenhan gave the information on how to construct this, so our science team, Chris Sohn, Kent Noonan, and we, with 3D printing and generating torsion field power coils, and Crystal Light and Sound, who was generous to donate a crystal for us for this project. The silver is a toroidal field, and the copper is another toroidal field. The silver is for the etheric, and the copper is for the electromagnetic field. Wow. And they're just like in the spaceship. They're at perpendicular 90 degrees to each other. Yes. Silver and copper around the crystal, and we pulse these with alternating pulses at 4096 hertz, the resonant frequency of quartz, to open up the singularity vortex to allow the frill to emanate. In our team effort, we presented for the first time on our planet at Danny Henderson's amazing Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference. The first frill generator crystal to about 800 people. This was in Orlando, Florida, back in 2023. And the first prototype version made on Earth. Keep in mind, don't try, everything we're giving is free and open source to our planet because it's a gift from their world to ours. But no financial interest whatsoever. But keep in mind, the frill generator, although it has great promise, is in need of developing. So I recommend to hold off, now, unless you're an experimental mind, you want to, work with it. I would wait until our science team develops it further. So there's a number of potential crystal technology applications identified. The frill generator is not quite ready for reproduction. The output is weak, according to Oona. But it's healing. The frill can go in and reorganizes your, it strengthens the bonds between the particles. It regenerates your cells. It's like you can impregnate water with it, and plants grow crazy. So it's health and well-being, for healing, for agriculture. Now this is fully operational and ready and good to go. This is the reality transflux modulator, as we mentioned. The liminal geometric point of transfluxation that creates the eye can be modulated with intentions of consciousness to affect reality. And so we call it a reality transflux modulator.
Beautiful name. Beautiful name.
And so there's two configurations. French engineer Cedric in France. We have a downloadable file, so you can print it inexpensively, or you can order it from him, or you can. I have all the parts on marcelvogel.org. You can, for your convenience, you can make a different configuration, but the idea is that the crystal is fit in such a way that it's not restricted, that it can oscillate, and that you put the pure silver electrodes on either side of the eye to oscillate it. And you can, for example, using your creative conscious with loving intention always, envision a desired reality to come into physical manifestation by modulating with your intention the etheric energy that's being transponded by the crystal to be imprinted into the open singularity vortex of the void, which uses the grid of the universe to change the holographic matrix of reality. You can use it for healing oneself. There's so many things you can use, or you can also envision, people do group visualization for a positive outcome on the planet. This is like doing it with on steroids, with Pleiadian technology. And of course, as we just went over, a lot of the techniques that Marcel did, now with this technology, now we're more effectively able to alter the holographic matrix of reality for healing. And this clearing device that our science team member, Kent Noonan, does, is available. There's a link on marcelvogel.org, or you can use your cell phone for free. You can use, or whatever method that you have that can generate a precise frequency of 4096 hertz, to clear the crystal. Now this is exciting and it needs development, and I'm asking people across our planet to look into using the precise frequency of 4096 hertz. Not only it will help clear your pineal gland if you put the device up to it, because it resonates with it, but it can also clear and structure water to be healthful. And so this needs to be further researched. This is a bit advanced, and I don't think most people want to try this. You can pulse the frequencies of the vortex horizon curve. This has nothing to do with Mr. Dan Winter's information. Genhan says, warning, there is a time mass ratio that corresponds to the saturation point. Once you bring it up to the saturation point, it's dangerous, because after this point's passed, the crystal will implode, and becomes
Right.
light and transcends matter and density. So you have to know to cut. It'll start singing, or there's this interferometry that creates this singing sound, and you want to cut it off before it does that. But it can bring frill into your body that way.
And then clear it, yes.
And this, I was pestering Jenhan for a long time to try to get this Pleiadian exercise that can regenerate you. You know, our regenerator, I asked him, you know, how they do it. And he says, Thorhan said that this frill harvesting technique is part of their Dorm Dorhu, their Pleiadian yoga practice, you could say.
Yeah.
This will assist in regeneration and help alleviate disease and deterioration of our Terran envelopes. It reconnects the hydrogen links between the chromosomes intra-elements. DNA can be transmuted into a stable state of auto-regeneration once you unlock the blocks that keep the strands disconnected from the morphogenic field of the universe.
Yes, I've
now,
heard of these things.
I will share with everybody right now how this, it's simple. What you do, I use a crystal with an activator to pull frill in, but you don't have to do that. You can do it without a crystal. But it's more in detail on marcelvogel.org. But basically, you, with your breath and your consciousness, direct the frill into your heart vortex and feed an upward toroidal flow from your base chakra to the top of your head, your crown chakra, and it creates this flow that's happening. And what's happening is when you project your breath in, well, I'll use a crystal, but you can use your hands too. I go.
Right.
I'm projecting the frill into my heart vortex, and that frill is feeding the upward flow, and it keeps it regenerating. And so, you know, do it for, 3 to 5 minutes. And
that's incredible information.
It is regenerate. You visualize the influx of frill into your central heart vortex with your pulse breath to be feeding the upward toroidal flow that is circulating upward from the base of your spine to the top of the head and back down again, continually repeating the cycling of this toroidal energy flow as you pulse your breath, the frill into your heart vortex to energize this flow. So that's the exercise, and people can try that out. So, all these potential applications based on our current understanding of technology and undergoing further research and development is available to everyone as open source and free to the people of our planet, as this knowledge that has been given to us is a gift from their world. And all the details on all of this is on marcelvogel.org.
Which I will definitely be leaving all the details for those websites in the description below for everyone to definitely access, mate, for sure.
This is talking about the collective power when many of us, we have power to affect reality. Elena and I did this a long time ago, creating a positive timeline in the planetary matrix using a crystal. So we had about 1,700 people. Some that didn't have crystals, some had just regular crystals, some used a glass of water or whatever. And when everybody's intention pulsed at the exact moment, there was a spike on the Schumann resonance was recorded. And I asked Jenhan if this particular spike had something to do with what we did, and he says, quote, "Of course it had an effect. There is a ratio of population that needs to be gathered to produce a visible disturbance, and you did it that day. The brain waves emitted by all living creatures on this planet are in interresonance with the ionosphere shell." And I used to work with Dr. Robert Beck, who was the expert on this, and measured people's brain waves around the planet and showed how they link into that Schumann resonance, and that their left and right hemispheres go in perfect synchronization and in sync with the planet. And so definitely that's true. So you can imagine this was a ragtag group of people, with some with crystals, some without, and everything. Imagine if everybody was using Vogel Eredyon crystals, or had the reality transflux modulators all going, and we all did it at once.
It'd be a whiteout on the screen.
We'd knock the Schumann resonance off the chart. So I just want to give a salute to the Galactic Federation of Worlds, of which and my dear friend Elena Danaan, of which, none of this information would be available. No. And I'm very humbled to be passing this knowledge on to everyone.
Myself
and
also.
Of course, our very dear friend, the Star Maker, Gen-Han Eredyon, who's currently in the Ares Prime base that was taken over by the Galactic Federation and the Earth Alliance back in 2021 from the Dark Fleet Nazis, the Nakwafen, and the Sakaar reptilian that have the Ares Prime base under their control. They've been kicked out of our solar system back then, and now Gen-Han is working in the Ares Prime base, doing what he graduated from the university, so he's performing terraforming operations along with other Terran engineers from our planet, and they're preparing Mars for in the next 2 years to be colonized by Earth. So they're getting it all set up there, while we still think, oh, Mars, it's a new frontier. They've been up there for a long time.
40 years at least.
So, more information, again, marcelvogel.org, elenadanaan.org. I have something very amazing to share with you that's never been shared. On February 8th, this month, Elena Danaan, in appreciation for the crystal knowledge she personally delivered, she went on board Thorhan's scout ship and went and took 3 crystals that were created on Earth, that are Vogel Eredyon crystals, and went on board of Oona's mothership and presented it to Oona and Thorhan. And I'm not going to say any more. Elena will later describe the reaction and everything, which was incredible. So these are the 3 crystals. This one's for Thorhan, this one's for Oona, and this one's for Gen-Han, as a token of appreciation, the little trinkets from Terra.
That is absolutely, what a beautiful gift. My gosh.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. It's because of the knowledge they've shared. What we've done is, thanks to these 2 wonderful people, Russell and Becky of Crystal Light and Sound, who've been working with us from the very beginning, instructing their cutters how to cut the crystals exactly according to the specifications that Gen-Han has given. And they, you can, I have zero financial interest in the business of crystals, but they're extremely reasonable. You can get a small, which opens the vortex just as much as the larger ones. Vogel Eredyon cut crystal, I think it's around 180. If I'm, the prices of the quartz are also going up, and hard to get clear, perfect quartz. But these 2 wonderful people have been working with us for some time. They also donated the original crystals that we're using for the frill generator. And thank goodness they're giving the people of Earth a source for this technology.
Absolutely.
And so I highly recommend you go to marcelvogel.org under Vogel Crystal Resources, and it links to the Vogel Eredyon cut crystal. And let's see what else we have. I put this on the end because I didn't think we'd have enough time. But do you think your listeners want to hear how Marcel trained me how to use the crystal?
Absolutely, Dan. Why not? Absolutely. I believe they would, because I'm sure that would actually help them with their knowledge base as well, and help them on their journey. By all means, please feel free to share, mate.
All right, I'm condensing this down. It's very involved, the procedure that he worked on. He trained 24 medical doctors, had amazing success. When I first met him, I drove in the middle of a storm from San Diego to San Jose. When in front of a doctor and myself, he dematerialized a tumor on this young girl's ankle in front of us, and it left a lasting impression on me. So here's the procedure in very, very brief. Okay, first, as Gen-Han says too, the first thing you do is you have to clear the crystal. And then how Marcel would do it, he would charge and link to the crystal. He would put it in his hand, and interesting, he would like squeeze it, which is kind of interesting. And then what he would do is something that is quite interesting, I thought, is tune into the etheric body by going into what he called the witness area, which is the thyroid gland, which is connected to all the systems in our body. And so you can see him here going into this lady's thyroid gland. He would take the crystal and he would rotate the crystal until he felt like a resonance, and you can feel this. You can put your hand up to a crystal and you can rotate into your own energetic field. At one point, you'll feel it'll kind of stop, and it'll be like a resonance there with the individual.
Sort of thing. Like
I asked Jenhan about this. What's this rotational thing about? And he believes it had to do something with, possibly, he wasn't sure, but believed that it had to do something about resonating with the area that needed healing, the dissonant area. And so you'd rotate. He'd call it the critical rotational angle. That was step 3. Step 4, you would breathe. You would become one with the patient, or actually the patient is actually healing themselves. All you're doing is facilitating them healing themselves.
Yes.
And so they breathe in sync, in and out, in and out. The patient and Marcel would breathe in and out. And he would amplify the field, going with up and down motion like this. And then the person would, and this is, Jenhan liked this because it gave responsibility to the person. The person would go in with their mind's eye. And when you have pain, it's real easy to go in and find out where the pain is, right? And let's say your foot's hurting really bad, right? You would go in with your mind's eye and just ask to be shown the core root source of the problem. And it can come in any form. It could be a pattern, a color, an emotion, anything. And when you have that, then what you would do is the person would link with this distress source and unify with it. And then he would start a clockwise, like a circular motion into the moment, and we start to amplify. And at this point, what happens, I've done this a number of times on people, and I had some amazing success things happening. And what would happen is that the pain would increase as the energy flows through the body. The pain would actually increase a little bit, which is great because it makes it easier to identify, right?
To identify, that's right.
And so it would be amplified, and then the person there would be a sequence of breathing in and out, and at one point there would be the release breath where they both release in, and they build up the breathing in sync. At the inhalation peak, the person would focus on the source of the distress, lock their mind onto it, and then Marcel would say, and they go, and release. Like that, be dramatic, the right thing.
Yeah.
And what would happen is they both pulse out in sync and release and break the dissonant pattern apart and the connection. And then a lot of times the person would, it's like they bend forward, and he says to support the right hand at the solar plexus and the left hand at the back of the neck. And then what you want to do is when you pull something out, you've got to replace it, right?
Yes.
And love is what you replace. Love is the binding force of the universe. And so it reintegrates. Yeah. You have an etheric incision and it needs to heal. And so love is what, and so you stabilize, reintegrate. He says, seal the etheric incision operation with love using an up and down motion, and then link all the chakras into a large ovoid is one thing he'd like to do. To stabilize, return the hands to holding the crystal over the thymus. You be like this, holding it over the thymus with a 6-degree pointed upward. And if appropriate, you give the person a big loving hug, like hugs or Tony Rodriguez knows. It's very healing.
Yes.
And then there's a self-healing procedure. I guess we have enough time to go over
absolutely.
this. To balance the body, you first clear the crystal, hold the crystal both ends with the left and right hands, like this, and focus on a facet and pulse your breath, then rotate to the next facet with a 6-sided crystal. You do that three times.
3 times.
Reverse it, turn the crystal around the other way and do the same thing. And this is like balancing the body, he believed. And then going through the crystal to bring bright light into the area to be healed. What you do is take the crystal, clear the crystal first, always. Charge and link into the crystal by pulsing the breath. Take a deep breath and hold, and close your eyes and see the tip of the crystal and let your breath out. Holding the image of the crystal, breath in, go from the crystal to the area to be healed. Breathe in and bring in clear, bright light, and release it with breath through the crystal into that area. That was another healing on self method.
Wow.
And then here's another method. Rotate the crystal into your etheric field and then visualize the area to be healed. And as I said, you can take your left hand and rotate the crystal, after you clear it, of course. Rotate the crystal to the resonance. You can feel as you rotate it. In fact, if you go up and down, once the crystal's charged, you can feel like a little air or wind blowing, it feels like. When you rotate to the point of resonance of the etheric body, you can confirm this by, once you're in resonance and you move up and down, you can feel it more dramatically once you're in resonance. And then close your eyes, go into the crystal with pulse breath, go into the area to be treated and visualize what needs to be done. And with a circular motion, draw your breath in, increase the speed, and release. And so those were the 3 methods that Marcel used for self-healing. And I went over all this in great detail with Jen Han. I wanted to see, I asked him basically over all these methods, I wanted to know what was science and what was belief, right?
Yeah.
Because people pull things out of their, and they have a belief, and belief has a certain power, but I wanted to know what science is, because there's certain universal laws that are science.
That's right.
All these methods, he said, were science, except for one, which happened to be about tuning with the back of your hand on the left and the back while you tune in. He said that was just a belief. But he said, these methods I've just read are effective, and I wish I had known such a great mind and such a vibrant being as Marcel Vogel. His legacy must perdure and be used to assist the people of Terra in their evolution of consciousness. The method you described that your friend Marcel came up with is very good, but little did he know that his own consciousness was bridging the frequency of the alter bodies to source. As Jen Han and Oona both shared, how the crystal is a bridge to source, and that it brings the bodies, back in alignment and causes the healing to happen. And so, this is in honor of my dear friend, Dr. Marcel Vogel, who was a very close friend I worked with for years back in the 1980s. So that, my friend, is the most extensive crystal information I have ever given in a show. And,
my gosh.
I guess you may have to cut this in 2 parts. I don't know how long we went, but we covered a lot of area.
We're still actually well within under the 2-hour mark, mate, my friend. Absolutely. We've fit quite a lot in. And I've got to say, Dan, thank you so much to yourself, Elena, Oona, the Galactic Federation, for being able to share, and to your beautiful friend, Marcel Vogel, for so much beautiful information that has been shared, not just with the Starseeds family, but with the world today, that this will get out and shared through the subscribers and everyone that's been able to tune into this today when this hits. So I am so honoured and very humbled to be able to receive this for all of these, family members here, to be able to share in that too with you. So much, Dan. Thank you to all of you.
Oh, my pleasure, Chris. I'm glad we finally got to do it. I know we've been wanting to get this show done, and hopefully
no, that's okay. All good things come to those who wait, and also patience is also a very big thing that I love these days, that I've learned more so of in my older age, and it definitely does go a long way, because when you have patience and things align perfectly, it just brings and produces such a beautiful moment for everyone to share in. So that's what we've been able to create in today. I'm just very grateful for this moment with you, and for all this information we've been able to share with everyone. Thank you to all of you, Elena, everyone, as I've said.
Oh, use this knowledge to heal yourself, heal others, heal the planet.
It's funny that you say that, because I was actually looking at the info as you were saying about thought intention, about healing the body. I've been dealing with an injury myself since I was 14, when I had my near-death experience, where it left my left leg, one leg shorter than the other by 1.5 inches.
You had some questions. I said I was going to answer some questions.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to brought out, that standard Vogel cut crystals that have different number of sides, they work as healing crystals, but they heal through the radiance, where a Vogel radiant cut crystal uses the open central vortex of the crystal to write. So there's a difference. So I can answer. I think you have 8 questions here.
Yes, we did have 8 questions, my dear friend. Absolutely. I think it was a few of my own and a couple from our audience that we had, and I'm sure that if I'm sure we'll be able to get through them, hopefully. So yeah. All right, Dan. Okay, so first question, buddy. How do you foresee? I've got these written on my phone in my notes here, so just bear with me. Okay. How do you foresee that crystals will have a common place throughout all of society? Do you see crystals changing our technology, our health, and personal relationship with key Earth, our 4 cultures, and the knowledge of our universe?
Well, to answer that question, advanced cultures already use crystals to embed consciousness and to create physical matter out of the ethers. They also use them in quantum communication devices. You take Elena Danaan's quantum communication implant that she has, and that Thor Han and Jen Han has as well. Jen Han says, quote, these devices are powered by very small crystals, quartz for the communication, and mercury iodide for the frill powering. So the device is actually powered by a mercury iodide, but the quartz is used for the communication. So we're going to be seeing a lot of applications in consciousness-assisted technology, probably using quartz crystals.
Fascinating. Wow. Thank you, Dan, for that awesome answer. Beautiful. Okay, question 2. Can crystals that are on board the Galactic Federation of World ships be used for interdimensional travel and time travel to the past or future? Is there a thought consciousness connection by the pilots to the crystal in order to travel back and forth freely?
Well, as we went over, if once the vortex singularity is opened up in the crystal, you can travel to any point in time and space, to any galaxy, to any dimension, any density. So yes, the crystals allow, because they oscillate, as Oona says, across the lattice of time and space.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, with Gene Roddenberry and his amazing creation Star Trek that we've all come to love and know, in relationship to warp cores and the technology with them, just how viably correct is the sciences with crystals, with what they have been disclosing in this show all these years, to what we now know in real life applications with crystal technologies? How right did they get it?
Well, Scotty, the lithium crystals. Yeah. As we went over earlier, the Pleiadian scout ships, they use crystals, quartz crystals in the central core that take the frill from the compression waves and gravity waves, and they convert that energy into the red ionized mercury plasma, perpendicular spinning vortices that torsion fields rather, that propel the craft. So interesting as like science fiction once again is close
Truth in
to
plain sight.
science
Yeah.
fact.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. They definitely got it really right. I've always been fascinated by dilithium crystal growth and how they can use them. Okay, here's another one about crystals and technology as well. In the relation to the TV series Stargate SG-1 and Atlantis, we also see a lot of soft disclosure with crystals, technology, sciences from warp drives, long-range space travel to weapons and scanners to long-range communication devices. We've also seen living crystalline beings too throughout the series. Just how much truth has been shown to us throughout these amazing series in relation to those particular mentionings? Can you expand upon this some more and give the audience other examples of this as well?
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, the implants and stuff, the quantum communication devices, this type of technology is going to replace our antiquated electromagnetic communications, which is, diminishes to the square of the distance and is harmful to our biological systems, the cell phones up to our heads and everything like that. And so with quantum communications, somebody can be on another galaxy and be communicating. And so it's far superior. Absolutely.
That would be in real time too, wouldn't it? That would be in real time, the communication too, no matter the
distance. And secure communication, because it's quantum. The two devices are quantum entangled. And so nobody else can eavesdrop or,
no dropping in. That's right. No line tapping. Okay. All right, here we go. Where did that one come from? Okay, question 5. Sorry. Yes, here we go. Okay, in the last few months, Dan, you have actually disclosed to me on the side and also with our presentation here today to the audience about my experience with the Emertha, and also told me about the science transfer program to Terrans initiated by the Emertha and the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Can you expand upon for the audience what this program is, so that the audience members that may have had an experience with the Emertha themselves have a greater knowing why it happened, what is their place in this program, if there is, and what they should be doing now? Should they follow up and study more of the Marcel Vogel website and your continued work with crystals?
Well, the Emertha, as I mentioned earlier, they're part of the science transfer program, and they work along with the Oomite and the Selosi. They, for some reason, this Emertha initiated contact with me, which I'm grateful for in the science that he gave me. But I guess I got picked or something like that to be given the science of the universe, which I'm, sharing with all of you now. Yes. Our engineer Kent had a question for Jen Hanna. I noticed interesting response. He wasn't able to answer Kent's question because he hasn't been validated by the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Right. And so, because I've been validated by the High Council, he's only authorized to answer questions that are coming from me. And so that's the way the program works. Elena made a mention that the Oomite are in charge of exchange of technology blueprints with engineers on Earth, the Emertha and the Alpha Centaurians. It's interesting that Elon Musk is an Alpha Centaurian.
Yes, yes.
Also to do this, but the Oomite are leading the project. So yeah, wow, it's kind of interesting. They're helping our planet in kind of roundabout ways of helping us get to that evolved state.
Absolutely. Wow.
Okay.
As question 6, as you and I both have come to know and love in the Star Wars universe, the classical weapon of the Jedi Knights are the lightsabers, and how the Jedi also have a conscious connection with kyber crystals. Does the ancient weapon from India, the Vajra, work on the same principles as a lightsaber? having a crystal at its core? And if so, is there also a co-conscious relationship between the crystal and the owner holder of the Vajra that works as one collectively?
Oh yeah, whoop, whoop. Yeah.
I should have bought my lightsaber hilt over. I've actually got one over there made out of pure aluminum. I should have bought
I don't
that.
have the exact technical specifics of how it functions, but I understand from Elena that when Princia demonstrated it, which is quite awesome, when he
Wow.
grabbed the center of it, it has like a quartz sphere that when his pressure of the hand squeezed on it, piezoelectrically activated, and through a mechanism created the plasma that the prongs, the 3 prongs, opened up and it
Yes.
generated this plasma that was pretty intense. I don't know the exact mechanics and specifics of it, but that's it's an ancient weapon that has been depicted in
Yes.
some archaeology.
Yeah, beautiful weapon, an elegant weapon, that is, as they say, an elegant weapon. I'm sure it would have been absolutely mind-blowing to see such a demonstration by Enki as well when he picked it up. Now, I've got a couple of questions also from the audience, if I can bring them up for you as well, if I can, Dan. Okay, and now first question is from a lady by the name of, here we go, from B1. Dan, can you please tell us whether you think Dr. Marcel Vogel's crystal healing techniques works well, or Jen Hahn's suggested holographic technique?
Well, the methods work, with a regular Vogel cut crystal, even with a Vogel Eredyon cut crystal. But the methods how Jen Hahn and Oona shared take it to another level.
Yes.
Although they work, if you use the techniques that Jen Hahn and Oona have, shared earlier, with a regular, Vogel multi-sided crystal, it will work. It's just not as effective because you're not opening up the vortex eye. But the crystals heal with what they call the radiance. Just because of the nature of quartz does that. Even raw quartz,
Yes.
can work like that. So that's the difference.
Okay, well, I hope that answers your question, B, and I hope that helps you with your journey. Next question.
My email is on marcelvogel.org, and if you need further clarification, I'm happy to go more in depth.
No problem. I'll make sure that I leave that in the description for everyone to access as well, Dan. And final question for the afternoon is that the question? Yes, sorry. A question from Starseeds family member Marlene Andrews. Are clear quartz crystals the only crystals used for creating electricity on other planets?
On the planet Era, yes, they only use quartz crystals. Now, there's a lot of different crystals, on our planet. Amethyst, citrine, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, all the different crystals that we have. But quartz is the most universal, as Jen Han said. It's the most perfect form in the universe. That it's basically the pattern of the entire structure of the universe. That's why it resonates across all the densities and dimensions at once, because it's it's like the blueprint of creation.
Of everything. Yes. Wow. Beautiful. Well, that's the end of our questions there, Dan. I've got to say, mate, this has absolutely been one beautiful, humbling experience today with you, sir. And I'm inviting you back to come back anytime and use my platform as a place for your voice to share in the future at any time. If you'd love to come back, we welcome you with open arms. You're our brother. You're a part of our family here, and we love you. And yeah, that's an open invitation, mate. I've got to say, this has been a very beautiful day. A couple of other things I was going to mention as well before we possibly wrap up this afternoon is are you attending Elena Danaan's Q&A that's coming up?
Oh, always, yeah. I never miss one. Yeah.
Yes,
Definitely.
our beautiful Q&A here on the 23rd. Yes, so I'm glad that you'll be joining that. If everyone would like to join in as well, and go over and register for Elena's webinar on the 23rd. You've got time now between now and Monday, so head on over for a small fee. I mean, you're getting not only the most beautiful atmosphere of people to connect with and spark new friendships and conversations, but I mean,
it's on this Sunday, and
yes.
well, it'll be
Monday for me.
The 23rd. I'm not sure when this video is going up, but you can always catch the replay. But it's kind of cool if you can get in, because you get to put your question in.
Exactly. Yes.
And,
I was going to say
this is not channeled information or anything. It's a direct connection to the Galactic Federation of Worlds that she's receiving this information, and it'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern time to 11 a.m. Pacific.
Yes.
And absolutely.
I'm definitely going to be there myself as well in the live chat, and I can't wait to connect with everyone. It's going to be beautiful, Dan. So,
pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure today to be with you, sir, and just being in the moment. I was going to ask you, is there any beautiful lasting parting words that you'd love to share with the audience before we wrap up this afternoon, mate?
Love is the connecting pulse throughout the universe. And we are all in this matrix together, and it's I see a beautiful future, as Elena saw on board the Metatron ship. We're moving into a fully liberated planet, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be absolutely wonderful. I foresee it myself as being something beautiful and wonderful in the next 5 to 10 years as well. I mean, it's going to move exponentially in the next 2 especially, and I'm on board for the ride, just like all of you, and can't wait. It's going to be beautiful, Dan. Thank you so much again, my dear friend, and we'll definitely catch up again soon, my dear friend. I love you so much, and take care. Okay, to yourself and Rebecca as well, mate.
Blessings, Chris.
Lots of love, mate. Take care.